Surprise, I'm back. Rapid fire, rapid fire, rapid fire. Uh, rapid fire. All right, so let's continue on. This is a rapid fire moment. So we left off at the OSS origins on mind control. So in 1940, President Roosevelt's special emissary, General William Wild Bill Donovan, returned from the Mediterranean burning with conviction. He told Roosevelt that, quote, neither America nor Britain is fighting the new and important type of war, which is on more than the smallest scale. Our defenses against political and psychological warfare are feeble, and even such gestures have been made toward carrying the fight to the enemy are pitiful and inadequate. So goes the story of the beginning of the office of the Coordinator of Information, COI, that was evolved into the Strategic Services, or what we call the OSS, Office of Strategic Services, and in turn, the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. Donovan COI took the idea of secret vote, which is what has to come to be termed black funding or black operations. He took it from the British, allowing the organization and its successors organizations almost complete latitude in its psychological warfare projects. In June of 1942, the COI morphed into the OSS. A period of time passed between the formation of the OSS and the issuing of its charter due to Donovan's insistence that the psychological warfare unit of the organization should head up the operation. The Joint Chiefs of Staff finally agreed, saying that all plans for projects to be undertaken by the Office of Strategic Services that will be submitted to the Joint U.S. Chiefs of Staff through the Joint Psychological Warfare Committee, and this will be done for approval. The Joint Psychological Warfare Committee will take final action on all internal administrative plans that are pertaining to the Office of Strategic Services. The OSS existed for 3 years, and according to Walter Bowart in Operation Mind Control, he stated it developed psychological warfare into an effective weapon against the minds of civilians and military populations, foreign and domestic alike. To wage effective psychological warfare, the OSS needed a background information on the United States citizens. Thus, the burglary of the private files was sanctioned. An early proponent of mind war was George Estabrooks of Colgate University. Estabrook contacted the Department of War early on in World War II and proposed the use of hypnosis in warfare. Although the government took Estabrooks up on his offer, he destroyed his diaries covering the years 1940 to 1945 and was unwilling to talk much about what he had done. Estabrooks is, however, said to have intimated the associates that he had researched in the creation of hypnotical program couriers and the hypnotic induction of split personalities. Estabrooks became loose-lipped on one occasion in 1968 when he chatted with a reporter from Providence at the Providence Evening Bulletin. According to the article that resulted, Dr. Estabrooks said that the key to creating an effective spy or assassin rests in creating a multiple personality individual. This with the aid of hypnosis, which is a procedure which the good doctor described as child's play. Esther Brooks even offered the suggestion that Lee Harvey Oswald and Jack Ruby could very well have been performing through hypnosis. Esther Brooks quite possibly would have been in the position to know. One of the top secret projects that the OSS participated in during its informative years was the development of the truth drug. And the truth drug was to break down the resistance in spies and POWs. This project was run in conjunction with the Freemasons, and it was supervised by the superintendent Winfred Overholser, who was a Scottish Rite chief psychiatrist at St. Elizabeth's Hospital in Washington, D.C. Along with the research team, he composed it of Harry J. Anslinger, which was the head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, and Dr. Edward Strecker, then president of the American Psychiatric Association. The study was assessed the uses of mescaline, scopolamine, peyote, and barbiturates, but settled upon a mixture of marijuana, tobacco, and attempting to perfect a concoction that would stimulate a quote-unquote state of irresponsibility. The OSS scientists then came up with a potent extract of the marijuana called TD. Its results were noted in an OSS report, and this is what it stated. TD appears to relax all inhibitions and to deaden the areas of the brain which govern an individual's discretion and caution. It accentuates the senses and makes manifest any strong characteristics of the individual. Sexual inhibitions are lowered and the sense of humor is accentuated. It is accentuated to the point where any statement or situation can become extremely funny to the subject. On the other hand, a person's unpleasant characteristics may also be heightened. The results obtained with TD, however, were inconsistent and the research was reported to be discontinued. John Marks writes in his seminal that the search for the Manchurian candidate that members of Overholser's working group included secret agents inside the United States government. And this was in the Manhattan Project of the atomic bomb, as well as informers inside the FBI. So let me stop here. So they went ahead and created Manchurian candidates to work within the federal government. And this was in the 1940s, 40s, 50s. That's insane. Wow. So on Halloween in 1944, President Roosevelt asked Donovan to work out the details of an intelligence service that would operate after the end of the war. In November, Donovan submitted his plan, constructing the organization so that it bypassed the chief of staff and reported directly to the president. On September 20th, 1945, the OSS was terminated by executive order. Although Donovan was primarily responsible for the creation of the COI and the OSS, due to his dislike for traditional organization, he was cut off from participating in the creation of the CIA. So again, basically the CIA comes out of mind control experimentation. That was their basis. Mind control, how to control Manchurian candidates, how to create assassins, how to hypnotize people to do their bidding for them. So the man who would take over control of the CIA was Allen Dulles. And then they get into, let's see here. They have notes about the CIA mind control. Frank Olson was an early victim of MK Ultra. Then they get into gray eminence. The major operations of the mind control in the 20th century have been initiated by agents that are dedicated to the New World Order. Bolstering this proposition is information on the background of Allen Dulles, which was the director of the CIA at its outset and during the period of its greatest involvement in mind control research. Allen Dulles and his brother, John Foster Dulles, stood at the pinnacle of the American government and its strategic planning during the 1940s and 50s, while at the same time being among the most influential agents for the New World Order. Both brothers were brought into the State Department prior to World War I by their uncle, the Secretary of State Robert Lansing. According to the Dulles family biography, Robert Lansing was so pro-English that he even took elocution lessons to perfect the English accent that he was cultivating. Lansing was good friends with the British spy Alex Gaunt, and Allen Dulles thought that Gaunt was one of the most exciting men he had ever met, and he made up his mind that one of these days he would become an intelligence operative just like him, except for the accent, of course. Lansing brought both the Dulles brothers into Paris peace negotiations, an affair guided by members of the Rhodes Roundtable Group. Other members of the Wilson delegation were Bernard Baruch, J.P. Morgan's Thomas Lamont, and Paul Warburg. It is alleged that the 14 points of peace plan were formulated at a secret meeting of the Grand Orient Freemasonic Lodge of France and the International Masonic Conference, and this was on June 28th through the 30th of 1917. Whether that is true or not, on the American side, President Woodrow Wilson was accompanied by Colonel E.M. House, the consummate one-worldist, who was the engineer of Wilson's domestic and foreign policies, who chose his cabinet and ran the State Department. House offended Wilson by excluding him from some of his negotiations that he conducted behind closed doors. This is known, but the nature of those negotiations may have been revealed by the allegation that the Versailles Peace Conference was actually conducted in 3 tiers. They had the public conference for everyone to see, the one covered by the press, then they had the secret conferences of the Big Four, and a 3rd tier, which was of the Masonic conferences which were conducted behind closed doors. It is also alleged that to guarantee his continued efforts in the creation of the League of Nations, Woodrow Wilson was given a bribe of $1 million in gold and gems, and that his subsequent nervous breakdown was based on his belief that he would have to return the money after the failure of the League. The House was an intimate of major international bankers, and they persuaded Wilson to lobby the League of Nations and the precursor to the United Nations. In 1916, upon the House's urging, Wilson created the first President's Brain Trust to formulate plans for a world government. The House headed up the committee with 150 members, including Norman Thomas, later to be head of the American Socialist Party, and the Dulles brothers. At the Paris Conference of Dulles, they were made the acquaintance of members of the Round Table, and a dinner party was arranged by House and held at the Majestic Hotel in Paris. This was done with the Dulles brothers and other Americans in the Wilson camp, and it included English members of the Round Table. An agreement was made to form a group of, quote-unquote, for the study of international affairs. John Foster Dulles acted in 1920 as an agent of the group in setting up the Council of Foreign Relations in New York. According to the 1953 CFR publication, the Royal Institute of International Affairs and the Council on Foreign Relations were founded in 1920 as a result of discussions between members of the British and American delegations at the Peace Conference in Paris in the year 1919. The two institutions, though completely independent, have developed their work along parallel lines in Britain and in the United States. With the funding from J.P. Morgan and funding from Rockefeller and the other members of the Round Table, the CFR acquired its headquarters at Harold Pratt's house, or Pratt House. This was at 58 East 68th Street in New York, in New York. At the Versailles, Dulles was able to fulfill his ambition of working in espionage by meeting T.E. Lawrence, which is Lawrence of Arabia, and gaining entry into British intelligence circles. Lawrence ran the British Intelligence Arab Bureau, whose head at the time was Harry St. John Philby. Philby's son, Cambridge Apostle Harold, also known as Kim Philby, coordinated both British and American intelligence agencies beginning in 1949, training officers for the CIA and staying in contact with Allen Dulles on a daily basis. Philby later defected to the Soviet Union when his role as a Soviet mole functioning in both British and American intelligence was discovered. In 1921, Allen Dulles was posted to Bern, Switzerland, by his uncle, Secretary Lansing, where he took over the role of Chief of Intelligence in the American Legation. In Switzerland, Dulles was met by his cousins, which were members of the Mallet family. Dulles's uncle, Petit Dulles, had married the Swiss-American Julia Mallet Prevost. Both the Prevost and the Mallets were uniquely powerful families in international politics and finance, holding hereditary seats. Listen to this. Holding hereditary seats in the Council of 200 that was ruling in Geneva, Switzerland. So the Dulles brothers, again, here comes the bloodlines, hereditary seats. Okay. This group, with the British royals, formed a joint committee of spy masters, which were working for the aristocracy that went back to at least the 18th century. The Mallet Prevosts were also responsible for injecting the Scottish rite of Freemasonry into the United States. By the mid-1920s, Dulles was tapped to be the first secretary of the American Embassy in Berlin. Dulles was also a director of the Schroeder Bank. This is the bank that handled Hitler's personal funds. In June of 1920, American Army Captain Truman Smith was brought into Berlin into a mission as a military observer. In 1922, after Mussolini, in the pay of the British, so the British intelligence was basically paying Mussolini. So in the pay of British intelligence, had taken over Italy. Captain Smith was dispatched by the embassy on the mission to Munich. According to his 1964 report of his visit, this is what he stated. I talked at length about National Socialism, which the Munich Council, Mr. Robert Murphy, which later a very distinguished American ambassador, General Erich Ludendorff, the Crown Prince Ruprecht of Bavaria, and Alfred Rosenberg. The latter became the political philosopher of the Nazi Party. On this visit, I also saw much of Ernest F.S. Hastenfegel of the well-known Munich art family. They also saw Putzi, was a Harvard graduate, and later became Hitler's foreign press chief. Hastenfegel states in his 1957 memoirs, Unheard Witness, that it was I who brought him into contact with Hitler. This may well be so, but the actual facts of this introduction are not firmly fixed in memory. My interview with Hitler lasted some hours. The diary I kept in Munich indicates that I was deeply impressed by his personality and thought it likely that he would play an important role in German politics. I must confess, however, that I did not see him as the future ruler of Europe. The memory of another who was present was somewhat sharper. As related by Smith, this is what he stated: 14 and one half years later, on March 3rd, 1937, he accompanied Mr. Hugh Wilson, our newly appointed ambassador to Germany, to the Chancellor's palace. This was for his initial reception of Adolf Hitler. Smith, together with other members of the embassy staff, entered a large formal reception hall to be presented to the Führer Chancellor. The embassy staff passed down the reception line. When Smith's turn came, he shook hands with Hitler and was about to pass on when he felt a hand grasp his sleeve. And this is what Hitler stated: "Have I not seen you before?" Hitler asked. I was somewhat surprised, but answered immediately, "Yes, Mr. Chancellor, in Munich in 1922. Hitler replied, "Oh, yes. You introduced me to Hassenfagel." There are other aspects of Smith's memory which seem to have dulled over the years. The German American Hassenfagel, a friend of Franklin Roosevelt, noted in his 1957 memoirs that he had been assigned by Captain Smith to join Hitler's movement and to promote Hitler's rising star. So let me stop here. So again, they're now explaining the real details about who supported Hitler, who promoted Hitler, how he was financed, basically, and how they met with Hitler prior to his atrocities. It's very interesting. And again, British intelligence funding Mussolini. You never hear this. You never hear this on mainstream anywhere. So, as Hitler succeeded in Germany beyond anyone's expectation, Hafsenfogel, I'm probably saying that name wrong, and his highly placed American connections served as press agents to the world of the Führer. According to one credible account, this man was who provided access to the Reichstag when the conspirators set it on fire. And the aftermath of the fire being that Hitler was able to claim a communist revolution and to seize the totalitarian control of Germany. After he fell out of favor with the Nazi regime, he worked as an American psychological warfare advisor. Although the thought is only speculative, but in 1918, Hitler had been gassed in World War I and was removed from the front lines to a hospital in Bavaria. A Dr. Forrester cited that the father of modern hypnosis was brought in and treated Hitler for what was thought to be hysterical blindness. This is interesting. Hold on, guys. So what this book is kind of suggesting is that Hitler could have been a mind-controlled individual. So let me repeat this part again. So obviously we know about Hitler's World War I. He was a soldier. He was injured. So although the thought is only speculative, in 1918, Hitler had been gassed in World War I and was removed from the front lines to the hospital in Bavaria. Bavarian Illuminati. A Dr. Forrester cited that, quote, the father of modern hypnosis was brought in and treated Hitler for what was thought to be hysterical blindness. At about that time, Hitler dreamed that he would be prominent in politics and would rise up to control Germany. This is really interesting. So Hitler could have been a mind-controlled individual, a mind-controlled Manchurian candidate. This would be the perfect plausible deniability. by the elite, if you really think about it. You give commands to an individual that doesn't know that they've been, subconsciously programmed, and then he does your bidding because that was the intention, right? They were all part of the eugenicist program, and he was following that program. And if he was being hypnotized, and some people said he was using drugs as well because of his problems, then you have a Manchurian candidate. So Hitler may have been, as a researcher, wait, let me go back. So Hitler dreamed that he would be prominent in politics and would rise up to control Germany. Although there is probably no way of verifying it as at this late date, Hitler may have been, as researcher John Judge puts it, quote, one of the earliest psychopatsies. John Foster Dulles, newly graduated from Princeton, was hired by the law firm of Sullivan and Cromwell, where he would later become the chief executive. Sullivan and Cromwell were the premier lawyers to the Eastern establishment, as well as representing a host of German cartels, including I.G. Farben, central in the prosecution of Germans' war, and John Foster Dulles, which was one of the primary organizers of the American funding for Hitler through the international elite financier Hjalmar Schacht, who later ran the Nazi economy. He was also the lawyer for Richard Merton, which was the founder of IG Farben. The Dulles family had been among the key players in the international eugenics movement. They advocated for it, according to John Foster Dulles, and this is what he stated. It is only by eliminating the lower members of the human race that a higher average is maintained. John Foster Dulles was a business partner to the Council on Foreign Relations and Bonesman Averell Harriman. Of course, we know Harriman supported Hitler. And then, here comes Prescott Bush later on. So Averell Harriman, later to be thought of as the elder statesman of the Democratic Party, was the son of the robber baron railroad man E. H. Harriman. Averell Harriman ran the private banking firm of Brown Brothers Harriman, which was heavily staffed with bonesmen, including Prescott Bush and the father of bonesmen of George Bush, or the father bonesmen of George Bush. As an example of this devotion to the Illuminati cause, Harriman chose the 322 Skulls and Bones secret number. And it's funny, let me pause here, because the Skulls and Bones was chosen by Hitler himself for his SS, right? They had the Skulls and Bones symbolism. So Harriman chose the 322, which was the Skulls and Bones secret number, for the combination on his briefcase when he had carried secret messages between London and Moscow in World War II. Among the major accomplishments of Harriman, guided by the Skulls and Bones, was financial and diplomatic support for the Soviets. So here we go again. Let me pause again. Funding of socialists, funding of nationalists, supposedly nationalists, funding of fascists, funding of the Nazis. So basically funding all sides. So at the time, it was quite illegal by dint of regulation of the State Department. Harriman had possessed large business holdings in both Russia and Germany since the early days of the century, and was also involved in the Ruskom Bank, which was the first Soviet commercial bank, whose first vice president was Skulls and Bones Max May of Guarantees Trust. Harriman and other bonesmen also owned a large percentage of the Union Bank, which was key in supporting Hitler in the early days. Out of the 8 directors of the Union Bank, 6 were Nazis or members of Skulls and Bones. Harriman would later be in the thick of the organization CIA mind control programs, creating the Psychological Strategy Board, the PSB, and this was done in 1951. The Harrimans, again, were represented by Sullivan and Cromwell, and were the single most prominent Eastern establishment promoters of eugenics. A study later to be furthered through the horrific programs of Hitler's psychiatric and medical establishments. Harriman's mother had bankrolled international eugenics congresses and the Eugenics Records Office in New York that had called for the sterilization of 15 million American citizens by 1980 in order to create the quote-unquote perfect man. Again, this is where Hitler was being run by these individuals in America. It's so crazy. The political class and the ruling class of America and Britain. Averell Harriman himself had contributed a large sums to the eugenics causes. The director of the Psychological Strategy Board was Gordon Gray, a naval intelligence officer who later became a close ally of the Skulls and Bones George Bush. Another close Harriman associate was bonesman Eugene Stetson, who had been the assistant manager for George Bush's father, Prescott Bush, at Brown Brothers Harriman in New York. Stetson organized the H. Smith Richardson Foundation, which was an organization that was involved in the CIA mind control program and funding, particularly in financing the testing of psychotropic drugs at the Bridgewater Hospital in Massachusetts. It is alleged to have been the center of some of the most horrific MKUltra experimentation. The H. Smith Richardson Foundation later was involved in the Iran-Contra affair, where it functioned as a quote-unquote private donor steering committee in tandem with the National Security Council. In later years, the foundation ran the Center of Creative Leadership Training, which was called the Leaders of the CIA. As the careers of Alan and John Foster Dulles and their friends had been in many ways integrated with Nazi interest, so it was with the formation of the CIA. After the defeat of the Stalingrad in 1943, the German General Staff were unified in their belief that the war was lost. The Deputy Führer and the head of the Nazi Party, Martin Bormann, and Hermann Schmitz, which was the chief executive of IG Farben, developed a plan whereby large numbers of Nazis would flee Europe and hunker down in hideouts around the world. They were waiting for the bright day when they might take another shot at world power. The first step in this plan was a transfer of large amounts of Nazi loot to safe positions. This is including 3 tons of gold, large quantities of other precious metals and stones, and perhaps $1 billion in currency. Hitler's favorite commando, Otto Skorzeny, was put in charge of moving Nazi assets and in the creation of the red lines, escape routes to Nazi colonies around the globe. An estimated 5,000 members of Hitler's SS and the Gestapo were exfiltrated through Catholic monasteries in a plan concocted by Papal Chamberlain and Knight of Malta Luigi Parelli. Assisting in the project was the U.S. Army Counterintelligence Corps, which employed Henry Kissinger, and the Office of Naval Intelligence. General Reinhard Gehlen, in charge of the Third Reich's military intelligence in Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union, and utilizing fascist organizations in Eastern Europe, had an even bolder plan for continuing his influence after the end of World War II. Using his top aides, the most important of his intelligence files were stripped. This is with the rest being burned. 52 crates of files were buried in the Bavarian Redoubt in a mountainous region called Misery Meadow. Within 2 weeks of the war's end, Gehlen walked into an army command center in Bavaria and announced, "I am head of the section Foreign Annies, East Germany Army Headquarters. I have information to give of the highest importance to your government. Gellin was ignored and sent to a prison camp in Salzburg. But within a month, someone had taken notice and he was brought to Augsburg for interrogation. Soon after that, Gellin's associate, Hermann Bahn, was forming up what would be called Gellin Org. And Gellin himself was flying to the US, dressed in American military uniform, to escape detection and to confer with top American military officials. On August of 24th, 1945, Gellin stepped out of a U.S. Army transport plane at Washington National Airport and was driven to Fort Hunt, which was located outside of Washington, D.C. At Fort Hunt, an agreement was worked out between Gellin and Allen Dulles and other personnel, whereby Gellin's intelligence organization would be grafted almost intact onto the OSS. So here we go again. Nazi personnel brought over and integrated into our most secretive intelligence community, into science. At that time, what the OSS, that later became the CIA, into our universities, and into other institutions and corporations. So imagine. My goodness. And of course, that leads you to believe that the British and the Americans funded the Nazis. I mean, come on. It's crazy. So anyways, they brought him into the fold of the OSS, giving birth to the CIA. Gellin's org, it is said, was initially funded by Dulles to the tune of $200 million and minimally supervised and working out of a fortified stronghold in Bavaria. It grew to control the entirety of the West German intelligence service. Gellin's intelligence agency also dominated NATO, providing them with an estimated 70% of the intelligence provided to that organization on the Soviet Union and Europe. Thus, American intelligence was infiltrated by the Nazis, who found their association with men like the Dulles brothers, men like Harriman, and George Bush to be friendly and of strangely familiar nature. This is key to the CIA's mind control MKUltra program and other mind alteration programs, both scientifically and philosophically. This was the Nazi connection. From the 1930s until the end of the World War II, Nazi psychiatrists in Germany had been horrifically implementing the Darwinian eugenics philosophy that they had inherited from the West, from men like Englishman Francis Galton, which was a cousin of Charles Darwin. The basics of this philosophy dealt with the improvement of the hereditary qualities of a race. This can be accomplished per the eugenicist in a number of ways, including selective breeding or mating, sterilization of mental defectives or the feeble-minded or the members of the inferior races. During this period, it is reported that at least 300,000 mental patients were exterminated in Germany. After the war, psychiatrists involved in these experimentations or experimenting programs were not punished. In fact, some of the most prominent workers in psychiatry, chemical warfare, and mind control related areas were imported to the United States to work in the scientific establishment and the military under Project Paperclip. And this was done through which as many as 5,000 German scientists were snuck into the country, with other immigrating later on. Among the Nazis imported to the United States were Karl Taubeck, who had been the chief plant chemist at IG Farben at the Ludwigshafen factory, and who was the Nazis' expert on sterilization drugs and had done work that paralleled the OSS and the CIA attempts to formulate truth drugs. You had Frederick Hoffman, who discovered a paralysis drug based on conch shell venom, and scientists like Theodor Wagner Jureg, Karl Rahr, and Hans Turet, who were specialists in poison gases like tabun and sarin, which was later allegedly the gas of choice of Japan's Aum cult or Aum cult. Another Nazi imported to the US was Dr. Hubertus Strughold, who had overseen murder and torture of inmates at the Dachau concentration camp. Strughold was employed by NASA and later lauded by the organization as the quote-unquote father of space medicine. Another Nazi employed by the United States after the end of the war was former SS Brigadier General Walter Scheiber. He was described by one army officer as the prototype of an ardent and convinced Nazi who used the party to further his own ambitions. He worked for over 10 years at the chemical division in West Germany on chemical warfare and the production of nerve gas. Many Nazi scientists, some of whom, like Scheiber, could not be brought to the US because of their notoriety, were employed in chemical warfare research in West Germany, combining 7,104 entries in 1957's edition of the Biographical Director of the Fellows and members of the American Psychiatry Association or Psychiatric Association. 1,125 came from Germany and East European countries. It is instructive to note that the CIA mind control scientists, like the Nazis, use certain targeted groups for experimentation, including ethnic minorities, foreigners, mental patients, prisoners, and what they called sex deviants, addicts, and the terminally ill. Another connection of the Nazis with the British and the chemical mind control, this deserves to be mentioned in passing. Although the mere thought that a mass chemical drugging of a population could ever take place is ridiculed in popular media, that was not the position of Charles Eliot Perkins, which is one of America's industrial chemists. Perkins was dispatched by the United States government to assist in taking over the German industrial giant IG Farben after World War II. In a letter later, Perkins wrote to the Lee Foundation for Nutritional Research in Milwaukee, and this was on October 2nd, 1954. He stated that, "I have your letter of September 29th asking for further documentation regarding a statement made in Ray book, The Truth About Water Fluoridation, to the effect that the idea of water fluoridation was brought to England from Russia and by Russian communists." This is what he stated. In the 1930s, Hitler and Germany Nazis envisioned the world to be dominated and controlled by the Nazi philosophy, the pan-Germanism. The German chemists worked out a very ingenious and far-reaching plan of mass control, this of which was submitted to and adopted by German General Staff. This plan was to control the population in any given area through mass medication of drinking water supplies. By this method, they could control the population of whole areas, and they can reduce population by water medication. That would produce sterility in women and men. In the scheme of mass control, sodium fluoride occupied a prominent place. This is what they stated. We are told by the fanatical ideologists who are advocating the fluoridation of the water supplies in this country that their purpose is to reduce tooth decay in children. And it is the plausibility of this excuse, plus the gullibility of the public and the culpability of the public officials that that is responsible for the present spread of artificial water fluoridation in this country, in in the United States. However, and I want to make this very definite and very positive, the real reason behind water fluoridation is not the benefit to children's teeth. If this were the real reason, there are many ways in which it could be done that are much easier, much cheaper, and far more effective. The real purpose behind the water fluoridation is to reduce the resistance of the masses for domination and control and loss of liberty. In the rear occiput of the left lobe of the brain, there is a small area of the brain tissue that is responsible for the individual's power to resist domination. Repeated doses of fluorine will in time gradually reduce the individual's power to resist by slowly poisoning them and narcotizing them. And the narcotizing of this area of the brain tissue makes him or her submissive to the will of those who wish to govern them. I was told of this entire scheme by a German chemist who was an official of the great Farben chemical industry and was also prominent in the Nazi movement at the time. I say this with all earnest and sincerity of a scientist who has spent nearly 20 years in research into the chemistry, the biochemistry, the physiology, and the pathology of fluorine. Any person who drinks artificial fluorinated water for a long period of time of 1 year or more will never again be the same person. They will never be the same person mentally nor physically. Wow. I'm going to leave it right there. Holy shit. This book is like breaking everything down exactly how it's happening. They've been working on this for such a long time. These people are psychotic. Oh my God. They're fucking crazy. I mean, these are the people that do what Hitler did. I mean, they promoted it. They wanted it. This is the craziest shit ever. And then they want to gaslight us. Every single day they're gaslighting us in the scientific community, in the financial community, in our education system. They're gaslighting us every fucking day, telling us how crazy we are, how stupid we are. When people are breaking it down in their own words that work for these projects that were part of the Nazi regime, that were part of the earlier United States OSS. We did bring and then they tell us that we were all conspiracy theorists when people were talking about we brought Nazis over, and then they finally in the later years, the last 20 years, they had to admit that yeah, there was a secret program where after the war, before the war ended and after the war, we brought Nazis over, the most extreme, horrific killers. We brought them over and then we praised them after they changed their names. We praised them as committing, creating the space program and working in this industry and that industry and coming up with fuck you. That's what I got to say to you motherfuckers. Fuck all you fuckers. And then you want the populace to respect you. That's the craziest thing ever. You elitists want us, the common man, that you've been trying to get rid of for over 120 years on paper, right? On paper, by any means necessary, scientifically, economically, you know, through war, you want us to respect you. Fuck you. Fuck you and your lineage and your bloodlines. Now I understand why people say curse your bloodlines. because you've sat here over 100 years eliminating populations because you wanted to create the perfect race. And it wasn't even Hitler's idea. Get the fuck out of here. Sorry, I'm cursing. You inbred motherfuckers. You are the true inbreds. You motherfuckers must have been, the whole royalty thing, sleeping with your cousins. Like that shit got your brain fucked up over generations upon generations. Seriously. These motherfuckers have been fluoridating our water, telling us it's for our teeth. Our teeth are not getting any better. You're getting more cavities and people are getting dumber. And this shit comes out of Russia and Nazi Germany. And they knew it in Nazi Germany that fluoridating the water would confuse the mind, deteriorate the body, probably cause cancer in your bones. And remember, fluoride for rat poison. Let's not forget that. These motherfuckers, I swear. And they want us to respect these people. All these rich people, they want you to respect them. That's the shit that's got me like, motherfucker, you trying to kill us and you because you're doing it in a nice way. You're giving us it's like they're talking to you in all this nice language while they're fucking, throwing gas on you and about to light the match. Oh, but we're civilized because we're doing it this way and this, we're killing you slowly. It doesn't matter. Oh, we're forcing you to do something in a nice way. No, motherfuckers. You're the most dangerous people out there. This is why they're doing 2020. That's why they're taking us to war every 5 seconds. What's the word? Let me give you the word that I read yesterday that they were talking about. Hold on. Let me give you that word because it's part of their plan, right? I'll show you now. Hold on. Oops. Darn it. Darn it. Hold on. This is the word that they use. So you can better understand. This is their plan, right? This is part of their plan. This was yesterday. Trist was the chairman of Tavistock Governors in 1963. And this is a statement that he made. He postulated that administering a series of traumatic or traumatizing shocks upon a society would destabilize that society, and it would lower the overall character of that society's reasoning. And the plan from the beginning has been to permanently, listen carefully, quote unquote, permanently create social disturbance, or how they say it, permanent social turbulence. That's what they wanted. They were talking about this in the 20s. They wanted to create, by the year 2000, basically, depopulation, permanent social turbulence. These are the people that they want you to respect them. These are the motherfuckers that want you to respect them. Listen, I curse. I have, I got my problems. I get angry, but I've never killed anyone. I've never talked about killing people because of my race or because being perfect in my race. I've never hurt anyone unless it was due to self-defense. And these motherfuckers that have all the money, have all the titles, have the PhDs, the master degrees, went to Yale, went to Harvard, have killed millions through war, by making the decisions to go to war, by creating policies in the mental medicine field, right? Mental psychiatry, psychology, medication, pharmakeia, they've killed billions. Killed billions by signing a paper, knowingly poisoning people, knowingly lying about going to war, creating the Manchurian candidates that gives them the excuse to go to war, creating the terrorist that gives them the excuse to go to war. If we're talking about they've been doing this like full on, if the Dulles brothers gave 200 million back then in the 50s and 60s, that's a lot of money in the 50s and 60s. 200 million? That's a lot of dough. If they were giving that kind of money, if the Rockefellers and the Morgans and the other fuckers families were giving all that kind of money to start the education programs, to start the hygiene, mental health, WHO / programs, and they've been at it for almost 100 years, we are in deep shit, folks. Like deep shit. You better get like organic, like fast, and not even organic. You better start growing your own damn food. This is where the GMO programs, the genetically modified foods, the genetically modified programs, like life forms, the genetically modified person, the CRISPR-Cas9, the Genome Project, the drinking of fluoridated water. What is that doing to your bones? Your brain tissue, your skin tissue, your cells, your maturity reasoning, your social development. And they want to tell us that this is that we are conspiracy theorists because we read their shit talking about how they were going to dumb us down. Like they said it. They're writing it in their books. They're writing it in their papers. They were writing it in the early 1900s when they passed all those fucking eugenics programs and laws in the 40 states talking about, certain races were inferior and certain people had too much of low IQs, so we got to sterilize them. And then I've shown you guys, I've done the papers on Kissinger's population control study, how we had to use technology to bring down the populations in the third world. I mean, let's get real. These people want us dead. Like for real, they want us dead. Like 2020 should have showed everybody that these motherfuckers are not playing. They're not playing. And maybe people got to get a little hype, a little angry, and speak the truth and not be afraid. And if they shut your channel down, fuck it. So be it. How do you wake up a people? You fucking talk and you 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 talk. And you show them the receipts. That means you got to read. That means you got to get their papers. That means you got to find, you got to go to the CIA vault and start looking for the fucking papers on the shit that has been declassified. And that means you have to talk about MK Ultra again. And that means you have to talk about the SRA, satanic ritual abuse through the military. And that means that's what we got to do. If none of you are willing to do that, then fuck you. I'm sorry. I'm not talking to you guys listening to me right now. I'm talking about other podcasters. And I know, they make too much money. I don't make no money. So I can say whatever the hell I want. I'm not making no kind of money. Nothing. Zero. Bing. Maybe a donation here and there. That's it. So I can say what I want. And people can take my shit, because they do. They selectively take what I got and say what they got to say. But everybody out there, you want to survive the next 20 years? Hey, all you millionaires right now, podcasters that are making your dough because you're entertaining the public with the bullshit, with the surface stuff. You want that money to last you over a decade from now? Because you're not going to be part of the elite. And even if you sell out, which some of you did, you still ain't going to be part of the elite. I know how these people are. They're fucking Satanists. Luciferians all through and through. Okay? Do you want a world where it's do as thou wilt and you're going to see killings and murders and raping all the time? That's so horrible, bro. We're seeing it right now. It's playing out. When I met with Lucifer's right-hand man when I was 20 years old, by the way, 20, and he told me that all this was going to happen, I couldn't believe it. But yet here we are and it's happening. Women are being raped, children are being raped, people are being killed on the street. It's like nothing every day. Kill, kill, kill every day. Everything everywhere is a third world. The third world is even worse than the third world. The whole world has gone to shit. It's going to shit. And I didn't believe it. Because how can you believe a world where everybody is killing, raping, stealing, robbing, hurting, you know, heartless, cruel all the time? I mean, I know there's the pockets of good, but folks, we're going in the dark direction right now. The cycle continues. Dark ages, enlightenment, dark ages. Dark ages, enlightenment. There's something called breaking the curse, the generational curse. We got to break it here. The generational curse got to stop here. I don't want the fucking cycle again. No. We're advanced enough to break the curse. Do we want to break the curse or do you want to keep on going? And then you have the people, oh, we have to go through this. Fuck you. People say, oh, you have to go through this. I'm like, yeah, you're saying that because you haven't gone through it. Like you haven't really, really gone through it. Like unless you're, Buddha or Jesus Christ, where you're like Zen because you went to the other side and you're okay with it. I haven't gone there. I haven't gone there. I'm not Zen right now. There's no Zen about me right now. I have my Zen moments. I don't got it right now. Right now, I really want these people to hurt. The people that are hurting others, I want them to hurt. Because they're so diabolical. I mean, I never used to use these words, diabolical. They are. They are diabolical. They are demon. These motherfuckers are demon that they can think of these things, how to kill people by the masses and have breakfast the next day or, eat their lunch or their poached egg or whatever the fuck they eat. Like these people are fucking diabolical. Like, can you imagine sitting in a room deciding how you're gonna kill masses of populations in India or something like that? Just think about it. You yourselves. You're in the in crowd. Okay, just picture yourself being part of the in crowd. And then you go and you hang out with the in crowd, sitting at a table in a secret meeting. And then you guys are talking and planning. You have papers on how you're going to reduce populations in Asia and China, and how you have some operatives over there in the Middle East and Africa, and how you're going to use the poison dart to get rid of some. Can you imagine yourself in a meeting like that? If that was me, if I ever got near a meeting like that, I would make sure I'm armed, number one. And number two, I would be that person that would be like, oh, the person snapped and killed everybody in the room. For real. If somebody's plotting to eliminate 1 million people of the population to get rid of them, it's like if I was in a room with Hitler and I got the chance and this motherfucker was talking and he was talking about how he was gonna open the gas chambers. And I would have been like that spy that got them all. I would have been that spy that got them all. I would have gotten them all. I would have made sure that I had enough bullets to take out his whole crew and his command, secondhand command. That would have been me. For real. Like, they know better. I think that they know better that they need to get psychotic people to run with them. Because if they get one person that's a little bit off in the head but loves humanity, if they get that person in the room, I think they're all gone. Seriously. I think they're all gone. Because how can you sit here and document it like this is the plan? This is the plan for 2020 and it's 1965 and these are the bullet points, how we got to get rid of the populations and what regions we got to get rid of and how we're going to that takes a lot of demonic planning there. It takes some serious demonic planning to be able to do this right. And this is what they do. And then how they plan, they go and they, get together with all the other groups over there in Europe, and they plan on how they're going to start wars and who they're going to fund in the background and how they're going to make at the same time while people are dying, and, how they're going to steal the resources while they're depopulating the area. Like, this is these people. That's why I will never give to any of those foundations. I will never promote any of those foundations or organizations or individuals. Never. Never, 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 never. I won't give to the United Way. I won't give to the Red Cross. I will never, I won't even look Rockefeller's Foundation's way or the Carnegies or any of those motherfuckers. I won't get a grant from any motherfuckers of their ilk. Nothing. Because they've been planning against us since they became families. So no, I won't take your fucking money. You can shove it. Fucking crazy people. Sorry, I had to go on a rant there because, my God, Lord have mercy. These people, they got too much. I think they got too much money. Honestly, I think that being born with a silver spoon in your mouth, you just so bored that you go crazy. That's what I think. Like, it must be like that. Like, you got all that money, you done it all, you have it all, and then you just become psychotic. No wonder God is telling you to, give away all your shit so you can be appreciative of life. Isn't that what Jesus said? What he told the rich man? Was it Jesus? Who was it that said that the rich man, Jesus said that, a rich man is basically not going to get into heaven, right? A rich man is like, becoming a rich man to get into heaven, or being a rich man to get into heaven, you have to go through the eye of the needle. What was that saying? How can I get to heaven? Sell all your belongings. Motherfuckers like, sell my belongings. Yep, sell everything. That's how you're gonna get to heaven. None of these people are going to heaven. If there is a hell, I think they're gonna be there. And let me tell you, all the higher ups of military, all those motherfuckers are going to hell. All of them at the top. I'm not saying like the soldier. I'm saying at the top. That know the deal. That know what's going on. All them motherfuckers are going to hell. They're going downtown. Lucifer is waiting for you. The horns are there for you. You're going downtown, General. You're going downtown. And your body's not going to protect you. I'm just saying. Because you're doing a lot of bad things, General. You're doing a lot of bad things to people. Young people. Kids, General. You're going down. Say hi to Satan for me. I'm sorry, I'm talking to one specific person. Made my life a living hell. All right, folks. We'll continue tomorrow. Maybe I'll come back later on tonight in the middle of the night as a surprise, because this month is October surprise. Maybe I'll come back. Maybe I won't. See how I feel. The next chapter would be, where are we going here? Chapter on entering the CIA and how the CIA got involved in mind control and experimentation. Let's see here. Oh, yeah. The CIA mind control experimentation started in the 1940s, or when they used to be the other organization, what was it, OSI or OSS? And then they were the ones that came up with the term the Twilight Zone state. Again, the CIA came up with most of these trends in movies and the trends on Twitter or X or Facebook. They're the ones that come up with these terms and these sayings, just so you know. All right, guys. If you want to support me at the links in the description. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, hit all notification for future live streams and videos. I did another live earlier. If you haven't checked it out, Go check it out. It's called the Shock Troops. I'm sorry, hold on. Not the Shock. Sorry. The Hold on, let me see what it's called. Yes, it's called the Shock Troops, National Councils of Mental Hygiene. And if you didn't see the Freud Hilton or the Freud Hilton Tavistock Institute, go check that one out too. And the Genetics, Eugenics, the Little Hitlers, check that out too. All right, guys, stay safe, and I'll be back mañana. Bye.